Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're doing okay. Lovely to have you here. Today I thought to talk about the topic of love, specifically the languages of love. So if that's something you're interested in, stay tuned.
Hold me fast, this magic spell you cast, this is love.
So love, what is love? Well, there's romantic love, there's agape love, there's eros love, but the kind I'm specifically talking about comes from a book that I read years ago by an author called Gary Chapman, and he's authored a book specifically titled The Five Languages of Love. And that's a book I read a long time ago, but it's been very instrumental in helping me understand who I am as a person, and it's also helped me identify the people around me so I can love them in a language that they understand. So I'll just go down the list of the five languages and then give a brief explanation of what each language entails. And then maybe you can find yourself in one of the languages, and then you can probably identify somebody else's language, and then you probably know how to get along best with the people that surround you. So the first language of love is words of affirmation. And when we find that that's the language we speak, then words are very important to us. It's so important that people say things like, I love you, thank you, please, I'm grateful. We take it very seriously that those sentiments are expressed verbally. And by the same token, when cutting words are used, they actually wound us a lot deeper than they would any other person that didn't have that as their primary language of love. So it's very important to identify if that's ours, and to identify the people around us if that's their language, so we know how to treat them accordingly. The second language of love is quality time. If this was our language of love, we would require undivided attention. What is the most important to people that identify with that particular language is just a full focus on what they're discussing in the moment, a full focus of what they're talking about, and no distractions while that is going on. And the third language of love would be receiving gifts. Now, it's quite likely that that can be mistaken to mean somebody's materialistic, but no, it doesn't mean that at all, because any kind of gift would be appreciated. It doesn't matter so much the price as much as it's the thought that counts, the effort that went into it, even if it's something you did by hand, you crafted it. It's just the sentiment of receiving a gift that is what's important when that's your language of love. The fourth language of love, acts of service. This is when the language requires that somebody serves you in a way, that somebody does nice things like takes out the garbage, makes dinner for you. You just love acts of service because that's the language you respond to. And the final language of love is physical touch. This is when we love to be touched, when it means a lot to get a bit of a back rub, a bit of a foot massage, hand holding and all that. That is very important when that's the language of love that we speak. So those are the five languages of love, and really the aim of the exercise is to know for yourself how best you can be loved, how best you love yourself. And quite frankly, the best clue is that we tend to love people using the language that we want to be loved by. Say, for example, my language of love is acts of service, then I'm probably going to end up helping out, just doing all kinds of things, because to me that means I'm expressing love. That's a huge clue in terms of, when you're wondering the person in your life, what language do they speak when it comes to love? How can I show them that I love them? Look at what they're doing to you. Look at their focus. If they're focused on getting you gifts, more likely than not, that's their language of love. That's actually the language that they understand best. So you're best served when you respond to them in that language. But by the same token, you owe it to them to explain to them that that's not your language of love, which you can only do if you've identified your language of love. So what's my language of love? My language of love is quality time. It means so much to me when my husband comes home and he spends time with me, that he's not distracted, that we put away all of our gadgets and we just sit across or next to each other and we make eye contact and we talk for hours on end. I mean, I am insatiable when it comes to conversation. I can talk all day and all night because that's the language of love that I speak. my husband's language of love. If we ever do a video together, and if that's something you'd love to see, just leave us a comment in the comment section below. So the idea of the languages of love is not just limited to romantic love. It's something that applies to all kinds of situations. Say at your place of work. I mean, let's face it, these are people you spend 8 hours a day with. You might as well get along. You might as well know how to get along. And the minute you know what somebody's language of love is, it's quite easy to have a better relationship with your colleagues. Same for your children. You know, you might have 2 or 3 kids. Trust me, they all don't speak the same language of love. And the sooner you learn each of your kids' languages of love, the easier your parenting will be. And the more balanced children they're going to be, because they will get that need fulfilled. I once had a friend who had come from a home where birthdays were such a big deal. They were celebrated, everybody called everybody, gifts were sent. And I didn't come from such a background, so I barely acknowledged her birthday. And I think a couple of birthdays in, she confronted me and she said she didn't feel loved, so to speak. And I was so surprised, but upon further analysis I realized, yeah, that is her language of love, and I wasn't doing her justice by not acknowledging that part of her life, just because it wasn't my language of love. And I had to learn that when I'm dealing with her, that was important to her. So when you understand the people surrounding you, when you understand the language of love they speak, you actually end up having smoother relationships. You end up, getting along a lot more easier. You get along better just because you know what's important to them. And if you choose to honor that, then you really end up forging a strong friendship, a strong relationship, or a strong marriage for that matter, or even a strong bond with your child or your children. And then at the same time, just once you identify your primary language of love, it doesn't mean all the other 4 don't apply to you. We each have a primary language of love, and then we have a secondary language of love. So there's one that means the most to you, and then there's a secondary one. And actually, to be honest, there's a bit of everything. It's just that one is dominant and it takes the bigger percentage, and then the second one is bigger than the other 3, but there's still a measure of each of the other 3. So it doesn't mean to totally neglect everything else. It just means now you know primarily how to love your partner, how to love your child, how to love your friends, how to love your colleagues. So that's it from me. So that's it from me about the 5 love languages. I would encourage you to get online and Google it. It's just the 5 love languages. Google it. Identify your language, identify the languages of the people around you, and start to work on having a better, stronger relationship. Let me know in the comment section below what your love language is, so we can have a huge love fest. And until then, I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers, guys.
This magic spell you cast, this is La Vie en Rose. When you kiss me, heaven sighs, and though I close my eyes, I see La Vie en Rose.